We're back with our third video for this channel, and for today's video we have made our very own mid-price team. We will be going through some of the players in the team for you guys and tell you why or why not you should pick these mid-prices. Also, at the end of the video we have an announcement for you guys about upcoming videos for this channel, so make sure you tune in till the very end to hear about that. Now Andy, the first player that I'm going to talk about, we both had him in our teams last year, from about midway through the season to the end of the season, roughly, and I know you have some very interesting thoughts on him. What do you think about Elliot Yeo this year?
The yo-yo effect. That's what I think about him. Last year, it was a roller coaster with yo-yo. In one week you'd get 120, the next week you get 67, until the string broke and you'd get 30 every week. So, and I put that down, nothing to do with Elliot Yeo or his playing abilities. That's just the role he had to play, with two key defenders going down the NAB Challenge last year for the Eagles. They're both coming back this year, Mitch Brown and Eric McKenzie. So whether that frees up Elliot Yeo to play in the midfield, I'm not sure. I know that in the Eagles community, they do believe that Elliot Yeo is quite a good midfield and he plays his best footy there. So I don't know if Adam Simpson agrees with that, but if he does, I'm telling you right now, Scott, this kid could be the highest averaging defender this year.
Yeah, I'm maybe not the highest averaging defender, but I reckon he could be.
He could, mate.
he could definitely be right up there with the top 6 premiums for the rest of the season. But that's so dependent on his role. But I guess we'll only find out throughout the season, won't we, Andy?
That's right. Yeah, and you got to remember, Scott, with pretty much all of these mid prices who have dropped their price significantly over the last couple of years, most of these guys are relying on a good role. You know, I could name almost 18 out of these 22 players that I could say to you, if their role is right, they will play well. Because if they all had established midfield roles, they wouldn't be mid-prices, they'd be premiums. But anyway, let's push through. What are you talking about?
Alright, so there's two of them. We're going to combine these two players as they're very similar with last year's season. Harang and Dour. What do you think?
Yes. I think those two are probably the most vest-affected players from 2015. Dour, I think, averaged 88 out of the vest last year. And Harang, I think, 81 last year, if my facts are right on that one. You know, with those two players, you know that they're going to increase the average. The only question is by how much. Harang didn't play many games last year, but with the vest gone for both of these players, if they can cement themselves in a role that could, you know, get that fantasy points rolling in, then I think they're absolute bargains. I'm not starting with Harang at the moment, but I do have Matty Dour in my forward line. What about you, Scott?
I don't have either of these guys, and to be honest, I don't see the hype with Harang. I mean, he's without the vest now, which definitely will help him get his average up above 70, but I think his midfield time is a little bit lacking with the amount of midfielders that Hawthorn have and the great team that they do have, so that'll be interesting to find out. And I did have Dour for quite a few weeks in pre-season, but then I started getting rid of all my mid-prices to avoid some of the risk that I have in my team. But I know you have a very interesting pun on Dour. Would you like to say that, Andy?
Oh, just a lot of people at the start of pre-season thought it was a pretty boring pick, but oh gee, you're allowed clangers in pre-season. Let's push through.
Well, actually, the thing about Dour though is his percentage of selection, 1.36%. Do you think that the fact that Bird is around that price, do you think that's damaging for Dour's selection?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's just... The hype around Bird is tremendous this year that he's moved to the Dons. That everyone's completely overlooking Dour, which is fine by me, and hopefully it continues that way. Anyway, let's move on to another player we'll talk about, which is it's actually a trio, and it's one of the 3 of the most popular midfielders, mid-prices this year. Gibbs, Liberatore, Crouch. What one have you picked, Scott? What one do you think is going to do the best for 2016?
Well, this is very interesting for me. At one stage I had not all three of these guys, not at the same time, separate times. I started off with Liberatore, then I got a bit worried, so I moved to Brad Crouch for a while, and then about last week I got rid of him back for Gibbs. So I've ended up with Gibbs as my favourite out of these three because he's a proven premium, and has averaged over 100 before, and back with a new coach this year, I reckon his average could skyrocket back up into the hundreds, probably 105 maximum, 100 minimum, I reckon. What about you, Andy?
You reckon that high? Yeah, I reckon he's 98 plus this year. You got to remember that between these three, he's the only one that's actually averaged over 100 in the past. I know that Crouch is pretty young. That could change very easily. But for now, he's the most proven out of the three. So that's who I will be starting with. Tom Nichols is a sneaky pick in the ruck. Given that Zach Smith left the Suns in the off-season, Tom Nichols is allowed to roam around as that number one ruck. And if he can avoid injury, he could be a very nice player of difference as a ruck at only 409k. And then we have two of the Port boys, Brendan Archie, Sam Gray. I'll start us off because Archie is I just have a bit of a man crush on Archie. He can do it all, this one. He can handle 100 metres. He can take those high-flying marks. He's got elite endurance, and he's actually quite tall in person. We were actually able to go to the Port training the other week, and he's actually pretty tall, so he's got quite an advantage over other midfielders as well. So I actually do think this kid's going to win a Brownlow in the future, but that's not to talk about in this video.
What? Alright, well, yeah, let's not go too far with that, Andy. I guess we'll see in a couple of seasons. I would say that your man crush for Archie is a bit over the top, but it's not really over the top, to be honest.
All Port fans
he's
love
a gun.
him. Exactly.
I love him too. I don't necessarily have a man crush on him, or he's not my boy like he is with you. But I do really like him, and I reckon his ability is just out of this roof. I reckon he could be a gun. Maybe not win a Brownlow, as you say, but as we saw at the Port Open training the other week, he shined, unlike the other Port player we have in this team, Sam Gray.
Yep. Sammy Gray was probably a bit quiet, but that is such a small sample space, one open training, so we won't take too much out of that. Last year he finished the season amazingly. He had that midfield role due to injuries in the Port midfield. With Wines and Pollock coming back in, there's so many question marks over whether Sam Gray can get that midfield a couple of minutes that he needs to score. So
I think he's really dependent. Like, his fantasy game is really dependent on the midfield time he gets. If he goes back to that forward role that he has had in previous seasons where he didn't get many games, I think his fantasy scores will suffer. But if he managed to maintain that midfield role, he could average 90 plus easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap it up, I'm sure you want to talk about another player?
Yeah, I do, Andy. I'm happy you remembered. Tom Cutler.
Jeez Louise.
He's fast becoming one of my favourite players in my current team. I've worked my team around.
You didn't even know his name before preseason, Scott.
Yeah, I remember the first time you told me about him, I was like, who's that?
Yeah, exactly.
I've never even heard of him. He's like Zach Williams of 2015.
Yeah.
Yes, I've managed to move around my team quite a few times in the last couple of days to fit him in. Had to get rid of Heath Shaw, which was quite sad. But the thing I like about him is that I read the article on the AFL website last week about him wanting to be that running defender / midfielder for Brisbane, like Pierce Hanley, like he's done in the last couple of seasons for Brisbane. And I think the fact that he wants to be that and that Brisbane will possibly give him that role, and that he's in his third year breakout, I think he could be a very handy pick and average around the 80 mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was our mid-price team for 2016. A lot of bargains in there, but a lot of ones that could flop this year as well. As we know, all mid-prices come with a little bit of risk. But now to our special announcement, Scott.
Yeah, Andy, I reckon I'll let you take this one since it was your idea. I reckon you can take it, mate.
I get to take the credit. Awesome. So over the next 4 weeks during the NAB Challenge, we'll be reviewing each position on the field. We'll be reviewing the top 6 defenders, top 8 mids, top 2 rucks, and the top 6 forwards. And we'll be trying to predict the top averaging players for 2016. And then on top of that, we'll be coming back to that video at the end of the year and seeing what ones we predicted right and what ones we completely failed on. So that should be exciting, Scott.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting, and I'm secretly hoping I can outscore you with that. I'm looking forward to it, and at the end of the season, I'm looking forward to having a wonderful laugh about how crap we were.
Yeah, that's going to happen for sure. Okay. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and we'll be seeing you guys next week with those videos. So take care, guys.
Take care, guys.